I was supposed to actually move to the East Coast, but that fell through kind of surprisingly to me. So I was left scrambling, and I'd already put in my notice, and, I asked for my job back, and they said, we're already going through the process. And so I was, looking at Substack and seeing what the platform offers, how it, all the mechanics behind it and everything. And so I just decided, okay, well, I'm not going to get my job back, so I need to do something ASAP. I know I have tons of contacts here. People know my name. And so, it was just a matter of, okay, let's create this thing.
This is Small Press, Big Ideas, a podcast about the business of local news in the United States. I'm your host, Paul Gewertz. Small Press, Big Ideas is about the opportunities and challenges that local news publishers are facing for their businesses. I'll sit down and talk with journalists, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and more in the local news industry to find out what's working, what isn't, and how the local news ecosystem can innovate and flourish in the 21st century. Today on the podcast, I am joined by Steve Puterski. He's the publisher of the North County Pipeline in beautiful California. And I think I found him on LinkedIn, invited him on the show, and here he is. Steve, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out, Paul. I'm happy to be here and kind of give people a little bit of insight to my career and what's life like in local media.
Yeah, that's what the show's all about. So cool. So that leads me into kind of my first question I always have. I'd love to just get a background on your career, how you got into local media. Just tell me your story a little bit. Yeah,
so it kind of started in high school. I worked for student newspaper type of thing, and I went to high school in Las Vegas, and kind of really found a niche and a love for it. And then when I graduated, I went to school kind of in your neck of the woods in north, but a little bit north in Greeley at UNC, Northern Colorado for those. And I kind of went a different direction first for a major and all that. And I wasn't really in doing a student paper, reporting or anything like that. And a couple of years go by, and it just hit me like, okay, media is where I want to be, specifically in sports. So it's like, I got to get paid to watch a game and tell people about it. That's kind of an awesome gig, So a friend of mine, her aunt was working for the Greeley Tribune. That's the biggest daily paper in Greeley. And so I got an internship through her and interned there for about a year and a half or so. And it was a slow process because I really didn't know too much. And so, you just start off on the desk, you do those grinding hours, from 5 to midnight or 1 a.m. and just doing what we had, what's known as the agate page. So it's all those little tiny print page, transactions, standings, all that kind of stuff. And that's the grunt work. That's the intern work, right? And then, they brought me along writing briefs for recaps of local high school sports teams. The coaches would call in, you take the stats down, and you write 2 or 3 graphs. And so once they kind of saw that, I improved on that brief writing, then they unleashed me into the wild a little bit. Was able to do some stories there. And then in 2007, there's Swift Communications that owned the Greeley Tribune at the time. So they had created another paper, a sister paper in Windsor. So that's about 20 minutes or so to the west of Greeley, between Fort Collins and Greeley. And that's where I really started. So I was on the desk doing layout and covering the prep and community sports for that small publication. We only had a team of 4, but it was a really great working environment. We just launched at the wrong time, though. It was 2007, so just as the financial crisis is starting to really kind of start bubbling up in 07 and then coming full throat in 08. And I was laid off in 09 and then went to Fallon, Nevada, to another sister paper out there. So Fallon is a very small town, 8,000 people. Churchill County is about 22,000, and then it's about an hour east of Reno. And my sister was living in Reno at the time. She graduated from UNR. My parents were up there too, so I figured it was a safe landing spot with the uncertain economic times. And then there I branched out. I was doing sports as well, but they wanted me also to cover news beats. So I would cover water, courts, cops, some county meetings and county commission meetings, stuff like that. In addition to, covering all the, as many as the prep games. And then I also covered University of Nevada football and some men's basketball too. And then in 2015, because I, single guy and everything, I was just like, small town, great town and all that. And that's where, and it's also where Top Gun is. So there's a big military presence there, with Naval Air Station Fallon. But my sister had moved down to Carlsbad, which is about 30 miles north of San Diego. And so I said, let's do it. I'm going to come down too. And then I got hooked up. I just walked into the office of the Coast News. It's a small weekly paper here in North County, what we refer to as North County, and started basically I was a stringer. I was covering one city for a month, and then a reporter had left, and then I got hired on, and so I covered Carlsbad and then Escondido and some other cities. But got really out of the sports game. That publisher didn't really, I guess, see value in covering prep sports, which was kind of crazy for a community type paper. There was some sports coverage here and there, but yeah, some of us kind of were like, yeah, we should do more sports because this is just a massive area for big time athletes. Tony Hawk lives down out here, and all kinds of NFL players and baseball players and things of that nature. So that's kind of my background in media and my, I guess, my life journey.
Man, cool. Yeah, you've been boots on the ground through a lot in the media, through the financial crisis and what some might say is local news falling. On this podcast, I think it's more of like a reinvention kind of deal, which we can get into. But yeah, you've been right there through the thick of it. It's interesting. That's cool. So tell me about North County Pipeline and how you came to launching it, or came up with the idea and made the leap into that.
Right.
That's what I'd love to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was about almost 2 years ago. I was supposed to actually move to the East Coast, but that fell through kind of surprisingly to me. So I was left scrambling, and I'd already put in my notice, and I put in probably too much notice with my old paper at the Coast News. And, I asked for my job back, and they said, we're already going through the process. And so when that happened, I was going to do a Substack when I moved out east. I still like telling stories and trying to do some local reporting and stuff that I, maybe looking at the area I was going to move to, didn't really see maybe as much hyper local stuff as could be. And so I was, looking at Substack and seeing what the platform offers, how it, all the mechanics behind it and everything. And so I just decided, okay, well, I'm not going to get my job back, so I need to do something ASAP. So I launched the podcast, and I already got, I know I have tons of contacts here. People know my name. They've seen the byline for 8 years at Coast News at that point. So there was some sort of, I guess, if you say a public figure or brand recognition in that way. And so, yeah, it was just a matter of, okay, let's create this thing. And so within about a month, I did that. And so I named it Pipeline. Sometimes people get confused by it, but I just figured you're in the news pipeline, right? And then we have the coast. And when you have a waves, inside the waves is a pipe. You drop in. And so I kind of wanted to tie the two together. And then it was just, okay, I already knew a lot of the issues here too. At Coast News, how it worked, it was each reporter got 2 cities to cover. So like I had mentioned earlier, I started with Carlsbad and Escondido. And so each reporter would get a coastal city, and then you'd get an inland city is what we refer to them here. And so it already, kind of had a good idea, and then just talking to the other reporters at Coast News and reading their stuff of what was some of the bigger issues and things that were already, that I could take with me, so to speak. I wasn't starting from ground zero, right? And so then, yeah, I just started creating, I had a bunch of emails, and those were the first uploads. And then it was like creating the social media channels, getting out there, putting all that stuff up. And then as part of obviously the marketing strategy. And then another thing too has been going to talk at local Rotary clubs and stuff like that. And you bring your QR codes, and those are usually a nice little bump. But it's a grind for sure, because I didn't have necessarily the largest social media presence that I probably could have. But at least on my individual X account, I didn't have a personal Instagram or anything. But I did all those for the business, and those are really good. Well, at least Instagram has been a really good growth platform for me. Take a lot of video, even some still, the static posts, depending on what it is, can really drive a lot of interest and stuff like that, and trying to get them to, click through the link and subscribe. So that was kind of what it was. And so it was stressful there for, the first couple of months, because it's am I really going to make it or not? And so I, really wanted to see how I could do, how well I could do. And so far in the 2 years, it's slow but steady growth for me. And, obviously I'd like to get, 100, 500 new subscribers every month. But I'm just not at that point yet, but I am at about 1,000 total subscribers. So I am happy with that. I've seen it go, and outlets, whether they'll credit me or not, do source my stuff. So I know people are reading it. It does get to political figures as well, or, government officials. And so, yeah, I do, and one thing it allows me to do too is get more into detail on my stories. And I've always I've kind of gotten more into that habit of like, there's an issue, but it just didn't pop out of nowhere, right? There's an origin story to it to some degree. So kind of giving people a little bit of historical context behind an issue of how we ended up get to that point too. And so because you're on the internet, right, you're not bound by the constraints of a physical newspaper. There are some like size requirements through Substack because, an email can run so long, put in a bunch of images or photos that can gobble up space, but it takes a while to do that. But it just basically just says, okay, you have to unfold that email to read the rest of it. So that's kind of where I've lived and it's been great so far. And so, yeah, I mean, I've been able to break some pretty big stories out here, be first on some things. And then also, like you with your Colorado connections, there was another big story out here a couple of years ago and like a sexual assault case with an elected official. And I call up the attorney for the alleged victim, and I was the only one he spoke to because I had a Greeley number and he went to Northern Colorado too. So he's like, oh, okay, I think I can trust this guy, even though we had no relationship. So there are those kind of wacky examples as well, but it's been good so far. And it's nice. So even when I want to go out of town or something, because this is a mobile platform, I can still work or do things, when I'm out of town, and I can still get, my readers the information and the stories kind of that they're looking for.
Yeah, that's funny. I get so many spam calls like from random numbers. You see a 970 popping up there. You're like, oh, who's this? I might know them. For anybody listening, that's the Northern Colorado, Western Colorado code. Cool. So you're the first Substack first person I've had legacy media companies, just other newsletter first, even like some social media things. But I'm kind of curious to dig into that a bit.
Okay.
Because I don't really have an opinion on Substack. I like the model. So a couple things. You said you have 1,000 subscribers, and I know you can monetize directly through that. I was wondering, are there any other monetizations going on, sponsorships or anything? And just your overall thoughts on the platform, because you can do a lot through Substack.
Yeah, and so that was another part that I kind of forgot about. But when I went to Substack here in North County, I looked through the platform to see if anybody else in San Diego was doing it. And for those in your audience who may not know, Substack is an email newsletter. And so it builds in your own website and everything that you could do. And there's a couple website templates that you can use, like a magazine style or something like that. And so, but they keep it kind of very basic to some degrees, which is good because it's, allows anyone really to just practice and play with it and see what they can do with it. I know when Substack, they made a big play, 2017, I think is when they launched. And so they threw, obviously they raised a ton of capital investment. And so they went out and got guys like Glenn Greenwald and Matt Taibbi, who have massive platforms and audiences of their own on social and have done a lot of some of the most important stories over the last 10, 15 years. Well, Glenn more on the national security side and Matt, with the financial crisis at Rolling Stone. So then that was like a big play. And then as layoffs have happened too, you're starting to see some of these local people now, well, I'll go to Substack. And I know that there is some pushback for some because you're a Substacker and okay, this independent media and stuff like that. But if people are losing kind of faith in their institutions, then that's only kind of a natural progression for everybody to go to. And if you have a big enough platform on social too, it almost makes more sense because like you said, you can monetize it. People can either do a free subscription or a paid subscription. Obviously the paid one's going to get you the full stories and all that kind of stuff versus where you install the paywall, but there is an opportunity there to really make more than what you would do at, any other news outlet. And it's just kind of, so it puts a little bit more onus on you to kind of be aggressive and do some marketing stuff and really kind of be more an entrepreneurial as well as a reporter. But yeah, I found it to be, no major complaints from people. I think the biggest thing for me was explaining what it was to a lot of these people because they'd never heard of it. And we do have a decent tech sector down here. So, but yeah, it's just, running into, a lot of people like, what is Substack? And so you have to go through the whole thing, and it's pretty simple. I mean, you just drop your email in there, and then it pops up another screen saying, do you want to pay or not? You're done. So, but it does give people a lot. And then there's creators of all kinds on the platform too, which is really great. Like from art to just, fiction writing or what have you. A lot of different creative minds out there. So it's growing in popularity, I feel like. And there are some battles when the Twitter files have broke. So Taibbi was part of that whole thing when Elon took over Twitter/X. And then Substack had put out they put out kind of like a competitor to Twitter. And so he got mad at that and has throttled down Substack links. So that's why if you see someone on Substack, they'll have their initial post, but then there's a follow-up post with the link. So that'll actually get some traffic. But that's just kind of, us being hostages over, so nothing nothing that we could control. So just have to kind of do that. And then as far as monetization, like you said, there are opportunities for smaller people like me. And I've tried and I've done a couple things. So the benefit of Substack is no ads, right? Because you have paid subscribers, so you're not just pounded with ads like you would be on a typical news site. But you can do sponsorships, and people do that. The sponsorships are basically like an ad. You just stick an image in there and be like, "Hey, this post is sponsored by, John's Diner," and they paid you, whatever the agreement was, $100, $200, what have you. And so people are able to do that until they can kind of build up that sustainable paid subscriber model.
Yeah, and I've lost what I was just going to say. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
The paywall part. So I know you have a paid thing, but I was looking through some stories, and I didn't scroll to the bottom. Maybe how's your paywall strategy work? Is it on some things? Is that
So yeah,
what does that get you? Yeah.
Yeah. So when I kind of had I had a layered strategy. At first I'd do 2 free stories a week just to kind of entice more people. Be like, okay, I can get this for free. It's free. And then, so that would be like my Sunday story and my Tuesday story. And then Wednesday that was paid. Thursday I do a rotating guest column of the local chambers of commerce. I just felt like having a business element in there and kind of what's going on with your local chamber and local economy would be benefit. And they do some event stuff, or they show off kind of what their chambers are doing. And then my Friday story would also be paid. And so you can put the paywall wherever you want. And so for me, I like to, depending on the story, but for the most part, it's okay, where's a nice little hook just before you're about to get, the real goods, and then kind of cut you at the knees. And yeah, it sounds brutal, but it is what it is. And, I had a buddy of mine tell me the same thing. He's not paid, but he's just like, yeah, I'm really getting into the story. And then boom, paywall. And it's like, yeah, well, pay me then, buddy.
It's like, come on, buddy, cough up the $7 a month.
Yeah. So then, and there's another thing too, for your listeners. It's it's a monthly, or you can do a yearly. And so for my yearly strategy, I said, well, if I'm doing $7 a month, that's $84 a year. Well, I'll do 75 for the year. So maybe more people would do, they get a free month basically, is how I'm looking at it. And then there's other options within the platform of giving discounts and stuff like that. So it's, that part is kind of cumbersome because it's either like, hey, here's this forever discount or a 12-month one. And you can't break it down like, hey, here's just for 1 month or 3 or 6, which I think would be a benefit to Substack to do that. So yeah, I'm kicking around some strategies for what's my Black Friday sale going to look like for now that I got like nearly 1,000 people be like, hey, is it 40% off, 50% off for a year, and trying to get them into that sales funnel to finally commit. Those are some of the things I'm working on, and I'll probably have a better idea of that within the next week or two. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for right now. And also trying to see and I know other people have said, they'll only do like the sponsored type of post if you have a certain amount of subscribers. So like for one guy that I know, he said, yeah, we need at least 1,000. So I'm almost there. So then that might open up some more doors.
I was going to say, got to watch out with that hornet's nest sometimes these days.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be best to sidestep that one, but if there is a way, or if there's two high profile candidates with a lot of money, then maybe it's worth it to reach out and be like, okay, hey, both your posts will run on a Saturday or something. Bam, bam. People get two, they can read about each of you guys or whoever and go from there. But yeah, it could go out, it could get off the rails pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool about Substack. It's from what I knew quite a bit about it. I had a smaller one a few years ago, not related to local media or anything like this. I just kind of played around with it, and it's ideal for somebody looking to do what you did. Just get a business off the ground with
Yeah.
don't have to worry about piecing together a bunch of different softwares or anything. It's all right there. And you don't pay them anything until you make money on subscribers, right? Is that how it works?
Right. So they'll take 10%, and then Stripe, who's the payment processor,
Takes
they'll
another
take
couple.
4%. So you're getting about 86% of what your
What's
fee
coming in?
is. Yeah, as a
Okay.
subscriber. So that's how they do it. And yeah, like you said, like you don't have to deal with website maintenance because that, and worrying
Yeah.
about people tax and all that kind of stuff and
Hmm.
buying a domain, and you just get that out of here. Like they provide all that, cybersecurity for you. And so that's for me, that's a big element too, because it's just, the website maintenance, it can be a lot depending on what you're trying to do. So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Very cool. What's the for like if there's reporters out there that are thinking of doing their own thing? Can you give me a sense of so you have 1,000 paid subscribers? You're basically a one man show. Do you have any freelancers you work with or anything like that?
no, so I get 1,000 total, not 1,000 paid. I wish that'd be
I
great.
see.
So that's like the next big goal, right?
Right.
But yeah, maybe this podcast will help out too. But yeah, I'm sorry, could you just say the question one more time? I forgot.
I was just saying, like, are you a one man show? The organization?
Yeah.
Do you have any freelancers? You're doing all the content, all the sourcing, and everything
No,
like
no,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
no freelancers yet. Like, I mean, if I could get 5, 6, 10,000 paid subscribers, then yeah, you can start building
Yeah.
out a staff. And I saw one Substack. It was a smaller town back east, I think in like North Carolina or something. And they used to work for their local newspaper, got laid off and all that. And so like 2 or 3 of them said, let's just do this Substack together and make it our community paper. And they did, and they're very successful at it. So, you got 3 or 4 people who do that, and you can, some of the other big time people, they'll hire things like researchers, or, they'll still do most of the writing, but I'm like, hey, I'm working on this story, go find this info type of thing, or have another couple paid reporters as well on payroll. So it does provide you that possibility of kind of being with I guess the new age type of media outlet, but it's just, a mobile digital version of it.
Yeah, that's cool. It is. It's a cool tool that just didn't exist a few years ago. Very cool. What's
Absolutely.
So you got 1,000 people reading your stuff. What's reception looked like? Have you gotten direct feedback from any folks?
Yeah, yeah. I've gotten good and bad. Mostly pretty solid, but when you start poking around in certain issues that people don't want you to poke around in, then they're going to get mad at you, right? And one of those was the Oceanside Unified School District. They did a new policy that they rolled out this year. Nobody knew about it 2 days before school, so I wrote a story, and it went wild. But the district was furious at me, and they're like, I was making up, using fake news sources and, all that type of stuff where they try to, discredit you. And they also try to allege that I didn't use any of their comments when I used every single one of their comments because I knew the story could be explosive. And so I had to respond. I took a couple days to calm down
Yeah.
and respond, and with an 8 bullet point email and saying, here's why you're screwed up on this attack on me. And here's the screenshots to prove it as well. And so, but yeah, for the most part, it's been good. I've had a lot of people, reach out, and, now I have a couple people I collaborate with from some of my Instagram posts, and just, people appreciate kind of, going in more in depth a little bit on some of these stories, especially when we're talking about some of these bigger state laws that pass and I'll cover, or even some like local stuff. And for example, United Airlines is going to fly into Carlsbad. They just announced that last week. Everybody went hog wild, and you'd think that's a great thing, but there is a segment of people down here who don't like the airport because of the noise and the planes, and then others are like, well, you moved next to an airport, kind of your fault. Give us more flight options. So, and there's a court case, there's a lawsuit going on right now because American Airlines came in last year, or earlier this year in January. And so we'll see how that all unfolds. Yeah, but for me, it's just, keep it balanced as best I can, you know, use other tools. And I'll be honest with your audience and you, like, I do use some AI for research purposes and for story editing purposes, but I don't let it write my stories. Um, and I do an AI podcast though. So that's a special feature I like to give the paid subscribers. And so through Google Notebook, you can create a podcast. And so what I'll do is I'll take all primary source documents and media reports, things that I know are legit sources, copy all that stuff, throw it into a PDF. It reads it. You have it do a script, an intro and outro, and then bam, you're done. So it allows me to get to some stuff that I normally wouldn't be able to cover within an hour, maybe an hour and a half of work, and then I have something extra for my subscribers. So, but I'm upfront with it. I disclose that, saying, "Hey, this podcast was generated by AI, blah blah blah." So, and so far, I haven't heard any backlash on that. I think people kind of like that because again, and I usually use that more for like the state legislation I can't get to because the local stuff I'm pretty dialed in. But if I see something that's big on that's going on up in Sacramento, then yeah, okay. I know some people, LA Times, Capitol reporters up there, San Francisco Chronicle, SACB, whoever, have covered that, and so that's where another just little value add.
That's very cool. I mean, I think I ask the AI comes up with every guest in this podcast, and it's
Sure.
like it's people all over the board. A lot of people are doing really cool stuff with it. Some people don't like it. I don't think you should be. There's certain things that people probably shouldn't be doing yet. They're not quite there, but there's really interesting use cases. So
Yeah.
yeah, I fully support all that stuff. I think it's a super powerful tools out there.
What I think in that case, like for reporting and stuff too, it's become a go-to just because it's so much faster than a search engine now, and
Hmm.
we're starting to see that natural progression, I think, or the evolution of AI like a Copilot or Chat. I think ChatGPT just announced, they're going to be launching a browser, and it'll be just basically like that. And so if you, take some time, like, I definitely watch some tutorials, videos, and then talk to a couple people who work with it on a very high level for major corporations, so I could get a better worldview of it and how to use it, because you don't always want to, especially in my world, right? Like I just want to get the accurate information. So, always making sure you click on the links that'll take you to the right information. And then when you're writing your prompts, making sure you aren't like corrupting the responses. So you're like always right or something like that. So you have to use more vague terms like explore this issue or explore that. Let's kind of analyze this. And so, the user has to be kind of careful, and especially for a reporter. So that's always in the back of my mind when I'm using that tool. So then I know I'm not selling short of my audience, and because people they'll watchdog you, right? And oh, this looks like it's AI generated, and where are you getting these facts from? So that obviously you spend years and years building up your credibility as a reporter, and it can be taken in an instant, whether if you did something purposely or even just kind of innocently, something like, oh yeah, I was just in a hurry and I just threw this in AI real quick and then copy pasted. So
Yeah.
that's something I'm always cognizant of too, because I spent too long building up my reputation of just trying to be as fair as possible to have that come crashing down because I was negligent.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was talking about. You probably don't want to be having it write your stuff, then copy pasting it because they are not as, it's just not there. Maybe someday, but I don't know. There's a lot of other cool stuff that can be done with it though.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did I have here? So yeah. Okay. So flash forward 5 years from now, what does North County pipeline look like? If everything goes according to your plans, keep that nice steady growth, maybe some hockey stick growth. Who knows? What would the organization look like in your ideal world if everything goes right?
Ideal world, at least in the next 5 years, 10,000 total subs, 2,000 paid. I'm sustainable. I'm making a good living. I can still provide the content and the stories that North County are looking at how North County is being shaped in the future. And I would love the hockey stick growth, because if I could get even more, to where it's a staff member to that'd be fantastic. And then over the years, if it gets big enough, who knows, maybe it's something I can sell off and use that as, my retirement. And, I guess that would be the ultimate goal. But for right now, yeah, I think, 5 years, I've learned a lot of lessons. So be more aggressive on some of my marketing. I think I can hit that 10,000 subscriber mark.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool, man. I'll be following along. I'll be there when you hit 10,000. I mean, we've covered all my questions. Where can people find you online, and anything you want to promote or link to? I'll put it right in the show notes so people can find it
Okay.
real easy.
Yeah, sure. You guys can find me on Substack at North County Pipeline or ncpipeline.substack.com. North County Pipeline on Instagram, Facebook, X, and Reddit as well. And if that doesn't work, you can always just search my name and then something will pop up.
For sure, I'll link to all that, and I'll link to your LinkedIn also, because I think that's where we connected. And,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I forgot about
and all the
LinkedIn. 'Cause I don't-
socials.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I mean, I don't have a business one yet. I don't know if I should, but that's the next thing I've been kind of grappling with, because I don't post too much there. I just post my kind of my business related stories or something like that.
Yeah.
But
I use it. It's just good for making good relationships and stuff. Like sometimes someone might
for
listen to the podcast and be like, hey, we should talk. I'm in the area or something. But I'll add all that stuff and I'll have links. So if you're listening, you can just scroll down and click on that. Awesome. Steve, thanks, man. Thanks for being here. This is great.
Thank you for listening to Small Press Big Ideas. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to help the show, the best thing you can do is to tell a friend or colleague and just take a few minutes to leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to right now. It only takes a minute out of your day, but it really does help the podcast grow and reach more ears. Check back for new episodes every Monday.